9th of February, 4th Sunday before Lent. Sermon on Isaiah chapter 6, Psalm 138 and Luke 5, 1-11. When the Lord calls us into his service, he is not inviting us to a picnic. To serve God is a privilege. It will transform our lives and lead us to heaven. But the way will be beset with suffering. How often in church do we hear the words of Isaiah's calling? Whom shall I send, and who will go for us? And Isaiah's ready answer, here I am, send me. We enthusiastically sing, Lord, here I am, send me, send me. But do we take it seriously? I've often thought Isaiah may have regretted his hasty response when he heard what God wanted him to do. Jesus' disciples readily followed him, without hesitation it seems, when he called. But they seem to have had little idea of where he would lead them. It cost most of them their lives. To serve the Lord of the universe is to enter spiritual warfare. Not all of us will give our lives, but we must be prepared and not disheartened by persecution in one form or another. And we must remember what all of God's servants have achieved, even in the midst of suffering. Isaiah was called to speak on behalf of God. It was a time of great apostasy in Judah, the southern kingdom of Israel. The people had allowed their religion to become perfunctory, token service only. They were dabbling in idolatry too. The law was being disregarded, the poor shamefully neglected, and more trust was put in military might and riches than in the Lord himself. It was very much like our own times, but the difference is that this was God's chosen nation into which the Messiah was to be born, and so he was intimately involved and deeply concerned with Judah as a whole. Retribution was to come upon Judah in the form of discipline, to bring them back to the Lord. But first the people needed to hear God's message, and it would be Isaiah who had the task of delivering it. And what a message! Isaiah was to tell the people that they would hear but not understand, see but not perceive. Their hearts would be calloused to prevent them from turning and being saved. It sounds like a curse. But it seems that having chosen arrogance and indifference, they should have them in full measure and experience their bitter fruits, which would be devastation of their land and exile. Isaiah asks, how long must he speak these words? And he's told, until the cities lie ruined and without inhabitant, until the houses are left deserted and the fields ruined and ravaged. Isaiah would not make himself popular delivering that message. However, his prophecy is testimony to his faithfulness, both in his ministry and in his recording of it. It has provided us with a book of matchless beauty of language and insight into the Lord's glory, and of his intentions for all people, for Isaiah's vision goes far beyond the confines of Judah and encompasses the future of the whole world and its inhabitants. Isaiah was probably highborn. He needed worldly status to gain access to kings and courtiers. The first disciples of Jesus were just fishermen. Either way, though, God could use them. Some accounts of the calling of Andrew, Peter, James and John make it seem as if their response to Jesus was without any knowledge of who he was. It can make them sound gullible, like people who are taken in by outrageous claims made by advertisers or scammers. But both Luke and John reveal that these fishermen already knew Jesus before he called them. All the same, though, they did not prevaricate when he said, "Follow me." They just left their nets, pulled up their boats and went. The response of the first disciples of Jesus was of vital importance. Jesus was on earth for only 30 years and his ministry was about 3 years. It was essential then that there should be others to carry forward the message, to spread the word, and eventually to write it down. Of these first 4, John was to be a prolific writer, and Peter an outstanding spokesman who spearheaded the propagation of the gospel and brought the first Gentiles to belief in Jesus. Without their faith and determination, the good news would have died with Jesus. We'd know nothing about it. It's interesting that both Isaiah and Peter, when confronted with the Lord and his power, were immediately conscious of their sinfulness. Isaiah saw the Lord high and exalted and attended by seraphs. Peter witnessed Jesus providing a miraculous catch of fish. Each was made aware of their fallen nature. However, God does not require perfection. We need not be daunted by his call. In his commentary on Isaiah, Barry Webb describes Isaiah as having a big vision of God, a deep awareness of his own sinfulness, a profound experience of the grace of God, and a willingness to spend and be spent in his service, whatever the cost. I don't believe that Isaiah had all these qualities to start with, but they developed during his ministry. And this description came to apply to Peter and the other disciples too. We can experience those qualities also if we put our trust in God's calling. When God calls, he also equips. It is clear from our 2 readings that Isaiah and the early disciples of Jesus responded willingly, and the outworkings of their calling achieved amazing results. Although they were just ordinary men, they were equipped by the Lord. Psalm 138, written by David, who was called to a different but equally significant work, claimed that God had made him bold and stout-hearted, qualities he needed in his calling as King of Israel and forefather to the Messiah. David faced many dangers, but he could say to God in Psalm 138, "Though I walk in the midst of trouble, you preserve my life. You stretch out your hand against the anger of my foes. With your right hand you save me. The Lord will fulfill his purpose in me." We won't all be in such physical danger as was David, but we can trust the Lord to provide for us as we work for his purposes. We might need encouragement in the face of apathy and disappointment, courage to meet derision and opposition, comfort to help us through grief. We might need material provisions or healing. But whatever we need, if we have truly answered God's call, he will enable us to complete the task he has given us.